The United Nations Annual Summit on Climate Change officially gets going on Thursday, with the UAE playing host this year. Over 150 world leaders are expected to attend what's generally considered the world's most important meeting on slowing down global warming. This year, the summit will feature the first ever global stocktake, where countries will assess their collective efforts to achieve their climate goals. Dozens of countries also plan to push for the world's first deal to phase out coal, oil and gas. Last year's climate conference in Egypt approved the establishment of a loss and damage fund, conceivably to compensate developing nations over the impact of climate change. Negotiations on the makeup of this fund are expected to continue in Dubai. For more on its progress, CGTN's Adel Mahroui spoke with the Egyptian Environment Minister, Dr. Yasmin Fouad.
As host of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, has been responsible for the transition of the dialogue and the negotiations, along with coordinating with the UAE's COP28 in Dubai. What have been the challenges during that period and the successes as well?
One of the most pressing challenges was the time, because we had to deliver on the transitional committee that's supposed to establish the governance for the loss and damage fund. This took quite a long time in discussion and dialogue between developed and developing countries, and we're almost there in the agreement for the loss and damage. The second one, which is still a little bit lacking behind in the convergence between developed and developing countries, which is the global goal on adaptation. And whether that goal will be a qualitative or a quantitative goal. One of the successes that I think went very quickly together in collaboration with the UAE is the global stocktake. The global stocktake, this is the first global stocktake since Paris.
This year, COP28 is going for the first time to be talking about climate change impact on health issues, and as well as municipalities' control or implementation to agreements led by governments. What are you looking forward to beside that, of course, during COP28 in terms of negotiations, and what issues do you think should be addressed the most?
Putting health for the first time at the heart of the agenda, bring the climate change more into the sustainable livelihood and to the part related to the humanity. For the municipality, I think it's extremely important at a time where most countries are developing what's called the National Adaptation Plan. You cannot do a National Adaptation Plan to adapt and make people more resilient without involving the municipalities.
When it comes to biodiversity, China is leading the global efforts at this year. How do you envision, how has the cooperation been actually happening in that regard?
I think we had a very unique relationship since we handed over the biodiversity COP14 to China and they took over the COP15. The work that we have done together as two countries to bring to life the global biodiversity framework, the post-2020, is really a very good model to be exemplified for bilateral cooperation for the sake of the global welfare. And having China also including climate change in the decision of the global biodiversity framework for the first time is trying to bring reality back.
How would a cooperation between China and the United States, the two biggest influencers in climate and emission, how would that affect the climate talks happening in COP28?
I think that would affect it in a positive way. Because one important part, as I mentioned, for the multilateralism is that we all reach consensus. You know, we cannot even gavel a decision for a COP if one country out of 198 would refuse that. In that world, every year the challenges are bigger and higher and tougher. We don't have to leave our current generation and the future generation with the struggle of, should we choose to fight climate change or should we choose to develop? Once that has been agreed upon, I think that the collaboration between the US and China, taking that into consideration, would be in the favor of a collective and an imperative action for climate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.